All right, so week one has been a bit of a head scratcher, but it's on the books now after last night's game. We have a lot of games to talk about, and I don't really want to waste any time. So I'm going to just quickly get into this. Let's recap week one, starting with last night's game, which really threw me off because for this whole video, I had to kind of rewrite or rethink and rewrite what I was going to say because I didn't really anticipate that game going the way that it did, but now I really have to talk about it. Um, Florida State looks bad, and I don't mean like there's there's no redeeming qualities really of Florida State. They played Boston College last night, and I literally don't think that there was a single position group that I thought looked solid or had hope, which is really sad and really scary. And I feel really bad for Florida State. For those of you who don't know, I grew up a Florida State fan. I went to the University of Georgia, marched in the Red Coat Band. So, I'm a Georgia fan, but I'm also a Florida State fan at heart. So this was really hard to watch, and it's hard to deny that Florida State is really bad. And I mean, I want to talk about a game later between Florida and Miami, and about how bad Florida looked. I think Florida State may lose to Florida. I think Florida State may lose to Memphis next week. Uh, it looks bad. DJ Uyunglele is not the answer. He's terrible. I mean, it's crazy to me to think that he was as highly rated in recruiting as he was, because I mean, he could not throw an accurate ball to save his life. He had no pocket presence. He's slow when he's on the run. No redeeming qualities about him. I really think that they need to put in the younger guys. The season's already over for them pretty much. They technically still have a hope, but it's pretty much over. And it's sad to see that 2 weeks into the season, but at this point, just put in the new guys and let them develop. We're going to lose some games, so might as well just get something out of it, because DJ does not need to be starting anymore. The receivers, when DJ did throw accurate balls, the receivers had butter for hands. Morlock was absolutely awful. I think he had 5 targets and no receptions. That's just unacceptable. We thought he was going to be pretty good this year. But in all the other receivers, just, did not catch balls. There was just nothing there that looked like there was any hope. The running backs couldn't get any yards. The offensive line could not block to save their lives. The play calling, atrocious. I mean, there was times where they needed more. They needed more than, just a few yards, and all we kept throwing were checkdowns. They don't trust DJ, which I don't blame them for, but he couldn't throw more than 5 yards down the field at a time. And yeah, I mean, the play calling and on defense, play calling was terrible. The flat, this irritated me so much to watch. The flats were almost never guarded. So on the first the first half basically, every single third down, Boston College would throw to the flats, and there was no one there to cover that area. Obviously, we couldn't stop Castellanos, or Florida State couldn't stop Castellanos. They just it was wide open. The defensive line showed no sign of stopping a run. There was no pressure to generate. There was no pressure generated to get sacks. Our corners and safeties, couldn't defend anything. The only people on that team that really looked like they were decent was the punter and the kicker. And that's it. And it's sad because I don't see Florida State making a bowl game this year at this rate. They look atrocious. Boston College, I really don't know what to make of Boston College at this point, because I think it might just be Florida State's that bad. So I don't really know how good Boston College is as a team. I don't really expect them to go super far. I think Castellanos is a really good quarterback, but their team as a whole, they didn't really do much as far as they didn't really do much that I think was their I don't know how to explain this, I guess, but I really feel like most of the problems in that game were Florida State's fault. Most of the areas where Boston College would succeed were more just Florida State failing than Boston College being good. But I guess we'll see that upcoming, in the future. But I got to hand it to Bill O'Brien. I heavily doubted him. They're definitely better than I expected them to be, and I can't believe that game happened, so I had to talk about that first. Sorry I put so much time on that, but that's the one that's most relevant in my mind. So, but anyways, we're going to go on to the big games now that I made predictions for in my previous video. And let me just say, there is a reason that I do not put money on week one games, because there were some crazy results, and I definitely whiffed more than I hit. for a lot of these games. I think I only hit on 2 of the games, but the first one I'm going to talk about is the earliest one, North Carolina versus Minnesota. And it was a really close game, and it ended up coming down to the wire, and it really ended up coming down to special teams. Carolina made their field goals and Minnesota did not. They missed 2 field goals that really changed the course of the game. It's one of the games I looked on. I picked Minnesota to win at home. I did not anticipate 2 missed field goals. It really could have gone either way. I think that Minnesota looked like a better team overall, but, when your kicker can't kick, that's a big issue. And that contributes pretty much. Like, that definitely contributes a lot of points to your team, or it can if you're not making touchdowns, which obviously also is partly on the offense for not being able to score touchdowns. But, yeah, they whipped on those 2 field goals, and that's what ended up deciding the game. But to break it down a little bit more, I really didn't expect both defenses to play as well as they did. Both offenses were pretty bad, but defensively, I think both teams held up better than I expected. I expected pretty weak defensive lines for both of these teams, but that wasn't really the case. And a shout out to Omarion Hampton. He looks just as advertised for the Tar Heels. He's an incredible running back. I was sad to see that Max Johnson got hurt and was taken out of the game. I don't know if he's going to be coming back or not, but it looked like a pretty bad injury. So, prayers up for him. Definitely sad. But North Carolina starts off the year with a win, so they have that to look forward to. The same cannot be said for Florida, as I mentioned earlier. They got handled. I did pick Miami to win. This is one of the games that I was pretty confident about and that I did get right, but I did not think anyone was expecting the margin that Miami would win by. It was a blowout. They went into the swamp and beat Florida by more points than I think most teams beat the FCS schools that they had at home that week, which is kind of insane that both Florida and Florida State are performing so poorly. And these 2 programs look to be going in opposite directions, I think. And the matchups that I thought were going to be, favoring Miami, they definitely were. And it was even worse than I thought it would be. That defensive line versus offensive line matchup, Miami owned them up front. So, that was one of the few things that I hit the nail on the head with. And I think that many of Miami's questions have pretty much been answered in the positive. And I think many of Florida's questions have been answered in the negative. I do think that Miami may still have concerns in the secondary, but Florida, like I said, was never going to be able to test that weakness because they don't really have the receivers to go and do that. So, I think that Miami may be the favorite in the ACC. I think that at this point you might as well just hand them the trophy because I don't see any team in that conference that's going to compete with them. And as for Florida, there's just, again, not much that look good. And maybe DJ Lagway, that looks good for the future. He looked like he was pretty decent whenever he came in, but Graham Mertz got hurt. Don't know how long he's going to be out. Honestly, though, I wouldn't really hold on to DJ Lagway, though, because Napier is basically as good as gone in my eyes, and an NFL caliber quarterback may not want to stay in a place where the program around him is crumbling. So I don't know if they're going to keep DJ Lagway or not. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but he does look good for now. He might play going forward in the next few weeks and burn his red shirt, and we'll see if he can turn that team around. But I really didn't see much to write home about Florida. That Florida versus Florida State game is going to be one of the worst games. It's going to be bad. So we'll have to wait and see. Next, another game I looked on, Notre Dame and Texas A&M. It was a close one that came down to the end. And to be honest, I felt like the ending did feel a bit anticlimactic because I felt like the game was pretty drastically changed by a call that the refs made. I didn't really feel like the catch that was reviewed was a catch at all, really. But let me know what you guys think and if you guys agree. At the end of the day, though, Notre Dame won. They won by 10, and there were a lot of positives. That offensive line looked a lot better than I expected. They had a combined 6 starts, but, they performed really, really well and performed better than Texas A&M's defensive line. Riley Leonard is still Riley Leonard, and the receivers made some big plays. And I wasn't really impressed with Wigman at quarterback for Texas A&M. He looked really average, if not even below average, and the receivers were dropping balls like crazy. It looked pretty bad, but overall, hats off to Notre Dame for going to Kyle Field and getting a win. That's something that previous Notre Dame teams wouldn't really be able to do. So that's a really big pickup for them going forward. The next game I have is USC and LSU, a game that I thought I was pretty confident that LSU was going to win. Obviously, that did not happen. And I felt like this game was pretty much played in a parallel universe because both teams know how to play defense now. And that really shocked me. I really didn't think either team was going to be able to turn it around so quickly on defense, but I saw a lot to like on both sides, including quarterbacks. USC came out on top, which, again, I didn't really expect. They made bigger plays, made stops when it counted, and LSU could not take advantage of several of the big opportunities, whether it be field position or forced fumbles, and they didn't recover the ball when they should have, or balls that should have been interceptions and stuff like that. I didn't expect them to both really play defense, and this was really a defensive battle, to be honest. Offenses, they did play good offense too. Again, I really like both quarterbacks, but I think these will both be interesting teams to watch going forward. USC might be a lot better than I expected, which will reflect in my rankings coming up in the next video. Yeah, USC, they're looking pretty good. And this is another game I got correct. Georgia looked stellar as they normally do in week 1. Go Dogs. Like I said in my previous video, Georgia is always more prepared in week 1, and this was no different. Georgia was better at every position. They really just rolled Clemson. It left no doubt. Carson Beck just went off. The ball was spread all over the place, and the new players look great. The veteran players look great. The defensive line does not look like the problem I thought it would be, and they did all of that without ETN and Robinson and some other guys. So, Georgia played like Georgia and got a big win. But Clemson, they looked pitiful, to be honest with you. The whole no transfer thing for Dabo is not working out. I think it's clear that Clemson will not compete cannot compete with the big dogs this year if they don't change their approach. But with the ACC looking the way it's looking, they might have a chance still to get into the ACC championship, but I don't think they hold up against a team like Miami. But again, it's still early. A lot could change, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. The next game I have is Penn State versus West Virginia. Penn State made me look pretty dumb Saturday. I really thought West Virginia had a chance for the upset, but this game was never really in question. Penn State took care of business on both sides of the ball, and it looked like they could make some real noise in the Big Ten this year. West Virginia really wanted to run the ball, and they were just never going to run the ball on Penn State's defensive line. There were just several areas that West Virginia just ended up matching up poorly against Penn State, and I don't really want to talk about it anymore since I whiffed so bad on that one. So we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about the games that were massive disappointments for this week, or the teams, I should say, that were pretty disappointing this week. Texas Tech, North Carolina State, South Carolina, and Oregon all escaped really narrow victories over FCS school. Yikes. Colorado is in that group too, but they played a much better FCS school in a game that was pretty much what people expected. The other wins were unexpectedly close, so that's why I didn't put Colorado in there. But the most shocking to me is Oregon, and I don't really know what I'm going to do with Oregon. I had them in my top 5. I believe I had them in my top 3, but they did not look like the team I thought that they were. It was pretty shocking. They had a solid defense, but that offense was so unimpressive. And Texas Tech had to go into overtime with their FCS school, and that was pretty embarrassing as well. So it was there was a lot of teams that really disappointed. Like I said, that Oregon one, I don't know what to do with them in my rankings. I think for now I have them dropped out of the top 25 because you can't be pulling that kind of stuff against an FCS school. That's ridiculous. But also, I kind of want to touch on Michigan here a little bit. They kind of fall in that category. They did play Fresno State. It's not an FCS school, but they had a pretty ugly win. Not as bad as the rest of them, but still wasn't great. It seems like Michigan will look similar to Iowa last year, as I pretty much expected. Still great on defense, but they're going to struggle on offense. Alex Orji did not get the starting job at quarterback, and I think that's a bit surprising and concerning to me for Michigan. I think they built their offense around Alex Orji, but he could not take the starting job, so I'm definitely concerned about that. Maybe he'll be able to take up that position later on in the year. I'm not too sure. But now let's talk about some upset teams, and I really only have one major upset, and that's Vanderbilt beating out Virginia Tech. And I was a lot higher on Virginia Tech, and I did not expect Vandy's quarterback to literally outrush the entire Vanderbilt team, Virginia Tech team. And Vanderbilt started the game 17-0, and they did slow down later in the game, but I mean, they pulled it off in the end. And the transfer additions and staff changes really seemed to benefit Vanderbilt in this win at home. And I was just shocked, and I just didn't expect this. I heard whispers about the upset coming from some other people, but I didn't really buy into it. I didn't believe it, and I was stunned. So for the Commodores, now what can they do against the rest of their schedule? They could be a pretty decent team this year. I don't know if it was Virginia Tech just not being good to start the season or what it was, but Vanderbilt surprised me. That's not a game they normally could win. I mean, they've struggled to play Hawaii in the past, and I think Vanderbilt may get. I think they're definitely going to hit their over. Their over was 2.5. I think that they're definitely going to win at least 3 games. So, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on Vanderbilt, see if they can continue their upwards trajectory. And I mentioned Colorado earlier. I briefly want to touch on that again. Colorado remains to be one of the most fun teams to watch. They played that game against North Dakota State, and it was so fun. But they look like the same team. Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter really carry the team, and the rest is pretty much mediocre, and I expect a similar season for them. And lastly, I do want to shout out Arkansas for dropping 70 points and giving up no points against Pine Bluff. I don't care who you're playing. I know it's Pine Bluff, but for Arkansas, that's pretty impressive. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to them. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. Obviously, there were plenty of teams I didn't talk about, plenty of games that I didn't think were really worth talking about. And so if I missed them, I apologize. And I may get to them in a future video. If there's a team that you wanted me to talk about that I didn't talk about, please comment down below and let me know. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and follow me on the socials. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this. And yeah, peace.